Um, Thank y'all for coming, and I'm going to talk about the law that prohibits more than three unrelated people from living together in Columbia. So, as a student at the University of South Carolina, have you found it difficult to find housing? And if you are able to find affordable housing, are you close to campus, or do you have to drive to class every day and go through the struggle of finding parking? If you said yes, you are not alone. Being a student here at South Carolina as well, I have dealt with my fair share of troubles when it comes to finding housing, especially near campus. Whether you're looking for an apartment complex or a house to live in, it is very hard to come by and spots fill up quickly. Last fall, my current roommates and I were touring houses, and I was actually introduced for the first time to one of the reasons why finding housing, affordable, convenient, and safe housing is difficult here in Columbia for college students. Um, so there's actually, it's because there's an ordinance or law in place in the city of Columbia that actually prohibits more than three unrelated adults from living together in a single family residence. I'm calling on the City of Columbia's division, sorry, I'm calling on the City of Columbia's zoning division and specifically the Board of Zoning Appeals to reconsider or change the ordinance that caps the number of unrelated people who may share a family, a single family residence at three. There are three main reasons why the zoning ordinance should be altered. The ordinances put landlords and homeowners in a tough position. Housing for students is moving Housing for students is moving further and further away from campus, and the number of students at USC is growing exponentially every year. So my first main reason is this ordinance is putting landlords and homeowners in a tough position. Um, because many landlords in the area have been in business for many years now, or began leasing their houses before the ordinance was in place, they sort of go under the radar and lease their houses out to people, um, maybe more people than the mandated limit of three. And because this law is difficult to mandate and enforce, it puts new landlords or even those who have been doing this for a long time in a hard situation when it comes to being financially successful. A really good example of how this has affected a landlord in Columbia is shared through the Neighborhood Company, which is a digital source of Columbia real estate. This article was written in 2014 and presents the case of Kurt Rayberg, who bought a house off of Whaley Street that had previously been rented out by five college students. And because Rayberg was unaware of this law before buying the house that he was going to rent out to students as well, he requested that the Board of Zoning Appeals designate his house as a rooming house. The board denied his request, and because he did not want to blatantly break the law, he planned to spend $30,000 to convert the house to a duplex where he could rent it out to six people. Um, so another factor we can also think about, because of this ordinance, is increasing rent for students or residents too, because now these single family residences are having to be divided by three people instead of maybe five, which the house could actually hold. So it really just makes it difficult for everyone, the landlords and students like us who already have lots of expenses. Governor Henry McMaster is also a well-known property owner in the university area and was one of the individuals that opposed this law. The American newspaper of Columbia, South Carolina, the state, reported that McMaster stated if the court is right and the city can use its broad police powers to control undesirable qualities of four female students living in the same house, then the university area real estate is doomed for eternity. So, my second point that I wanted to touch on was housing for students is moving further and further away from campus. When I talk to many of my friends or colleagues here at school, it seems like everyone went through lots of trouble to find the place where they're living now, and maybe they're not satisfied with that particular place either. This is probably because they're having to live in a neighborhood farther from campus where it might not be safe or convenient. This ordinance in the city of Columbia is pushing people further from campus, which requires students to have to drive to class. Because parking is such an issue here as well, Students that live far from campus have to allot extra time for themselves to commute and find a good parking spot. This decreases students' willingness to go to class, which is known to negatively affect grades. I've seen that this issue really ends up hindering students' performances. It increases stress levels. It isolates them from campus life. It also provokes students to opt for more online classes because it takes away the burden and reduces the time spent commuting to campus and actually finding a parking spot. Um, my third point, our school's population is growing exponentially every year, which I feel like we all can see. They so the Carolina News and Reporter is a reporting station led by students in the Richland County area. Sydney Dunlap and Jack Wolf reported through the Carolina News and Reporter in 2023, sorry, that enrollment at the University of South Carolina is at an all-time high, with a record of 7,344 freshmen starting in 2023, pushing the total undergrad enrollment to more than 36,300. But only 10,113 students were projected to live on campus, leaving more students to rely on off-campus housing in neighborhoods surrounding the urban school. With our school's number of students rising each year, the need for housing becomes a bigger issue. This law that is in place today limits the number of individuals that can live in residences near campus because a three-person house is hard to come by, pushing students away from these homes and putting them in a bind. So to wrap up, although I could continue to list off additional reasons why this law should be altered, the two reasons I spoke about today, or three reasons I spoke about today, are the big issues that need to be addressed. As our school's population continues to grow, students need a place to live, and this law is pushing students further from campus where they're attending classes and are essentially attending that school. And it also puts landlords in a hard position too. Although the number of housing options near campus is limited to begin with, this ordinance in Columbia is not helping this issue. I believe it is doing more harm than good. And I can also understand where these families and residents of the area are coming from. Living in a college town would be hard with the congestion and noise, especially as our college is growing. But this is why I brought up this issue, and it needs to be addressed and talked about because with either side, there are concerns. And it's really putting a damper on students' um, access to learning and loving their campus. So thank you for listening. And now I was going to ask, did any of y'all find trouble finding housing here too? Have y'all ever heard of this rule before? Well, I feel like I didn't know about it either. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Until like last year when my landlord explained it to me. But I also think that a lot of landlords do kind of like go under the radar with it. But I think if this wasn't a rule, it would allow more people to have closer to campus housing. But do y'all have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm just curious. Do you know if like any other states have similar laws or is South Carolina kind of alone?
Um,
And
I think I think there are states. I don't really know this. But I think there are states that do have similar laws. But I'm not positive. But there is like if y'all have ever heard of the brothel rule, I feel like that's an issue other places too, especially with like sorority or fraternity, like not being allowed to have sorority houses on campus or that kind of stuff. So,
I know, so I'm from Rhode Island and URI,
mhm.
they don't allow more than four people in a house, but that's not like a Rhode Island rule. That's just like a
Yeah,
Narragansett where University of Rhode Island is.
yeah.
What do you think like a balance like it should be like abolished completely, or do you think there should still be like a limit to like not have like it's too much overcrowding? Do you think like there should be like a 6 people, or like what do you think should be living in a single
Um,
one?
yeah, I definitely don't think, I think this law has a purpose and stuff. But I feel like it could maybe be compromised, like 5 or 6 people, especially because a lot of houses around here do like accommodate for that, but um, but I get, and I also understand where the law is coming from, especially because we're in a city and a lot of it's very residential. So, um, yeah, but I feel like it could maybe just be adjusted or altered for the sake of everyone. Do you have any other questions? Well, thank y'all for listening. I'm trying to, okay. Thank y'all.